everybody, welcome back to Photography for the Rest of Us, a place for people who love photography. And today I am covering 5 quick tips on shooting in the snow. Hey guys, so it finally snowed here in Kansas, and I know a lot of people have been asking for some tips and tricks on shooting in the snow, so I thought I'd record a quick video on my top 5 tips to getting great shots out here in the snow. Okay, so tip number 1, acclimate your gear. So you want to put your camera gear, your lenses and your camera body, whatever you're using, outside before you go and shoot. So I put mine in my camera bag on my front porch while I'm, getting stuff together and putting on my boots and that. If you're driving somewhere, put it in the trunk of your car rather than in the body of your car because the trunk stays a little cooler. But really the goal here is you're trying to make sure that your lenses and your camera body kind of get down to similar temperature to the outside. Now, there is a caveat to that, right? If it's super freaking cold, you don't want to freeze your camera body completely or your lenses, which is why we put them in the camera bag and just let the temperature drop a little bit. It's similar to if you wear glasses and you are inside and you walk outside and the glasses fog up, or vice versa, I guess it works both ways. So really the idea here is you're just trying to get your camera body and your lenses down to a temperature so that they don't fog up when you try and use them. And when you're checking for fog, you actually want to look at both sides, because even if you wipe it off on this end, it might be foggy over here, all right? So, and also your camera mirror can fog up and your viewfinder. So just having the plan to wipe it all down doesn't really work for you. So acclimate your gear and get it to a similar temperature to the outside within reason. Tip number 2, your batteries do not need to be acclimated. So when you put your camera gear outside, put your batteries in the inside pocket of your coat, which is where I have mine. Batteries actually drain really, really quickly in the cold weather. So I absolutely recommend you having a backup battery if you plan on going out and shooting in the cold. And those backup batteries need to be kept warm. So I just keep them in the inside pocket of my coat to keep them warm and toasty and charged. You will find that your batteries drain really fast in the cold. I went through an entire battery shooting my family sledding a couple of days ago. And usually a full battery can last me for easily 1,500 shots. So, and I didn't shoot anywhere near that because it was cold out. So tip number 2, keep your battery inside your coat to keep it warm. Tip number 3, use exposure compensation. Now, I actually don't use exposure compensation that often, but in the snow is a time that I actually do use that feature on my camera. Now, the problem with shooting in the snow is that there's white everywhere. And what does white do? It bounces light. So when you're looking through your camera at your exposure meter, the meter is gonna read incorrectly. It's gonna say, oh my gosh, it's so bright, it's so bright, it's so bright. And it's gonna compensate with that, and you're gonna end up with darker or gray photos. And we don't want gray snow, we want beautiful white snow. So what you want to do is overexpose from what your meter is telling you. Now that can sound complicated and it can feel complicated when you're thinking about all of the other features, and that's where exposure compensation comes in. Exposure compensation, you can tell your camera, hey, I want you to overexpose by 1 or 2 stops or wherever is comfortable for you on every shot, no matter what I have the exposure meter set to. That way, no matter what you change your framing to, if you shoot something a little darker or a little brighter, all you have to do is set your dial so you have a proper exposure, and the camera will overexpose for you so you make sure that you have nice white snow. Obviously, this can be fixed in post, but if you like getting things in camera so you can look in the back of the camera and be like, ooh, ah, then you want to use exposure compensation. Tip number 4, so use your histogram. You might notice, if you're a newer photographer who always checks the back of their camera, that it's hard to see the back of your camera in a really bright setting. You guys can see that I'm squinting on the video because there's so much white snow around that the light is reflecting into my eyes, right? So the same problem is when you look on the back of your screen. It's hard to see the images, and it's hard to see that if you have proper exposure. So what you want to do is look on the histogram on your camera. And now should be all at this point, cameras have the option to show you the histogram. You might have to turn that feature on, but when you're looking at the histogram, it should look something like this. And the big thing is you just want to keep all of the bars inside the box. or close to it. If you know the scene is very bright white, then it's probably going to be heavy on one side for the histogram. And if you know the scene is very dark, it might be heavy on the other side. But the point is we're trying not to get those bars too far out of the box, and that way we know we have a proper exposure that we can work with in post. And tip number 5, your white balance. We all got really good at shooting beautiful golden hour photos in the fall with nice yellow tones, but nobody wants yellow snow. So change your white balance. If you're not going to shoot in auto white balance, which honestly I do most of the time because I can correct my white balance in post, my recommendation would be shooting in a flash white balance or something very neutral, because you don't want too much blue tones in your snow, but you also definitely don't want to go into the yellow hues. So something neutral will help, and then you can adjust in post. Flash is my recommendation. And last but not least, I have a bonus tip for you. I absolutely swear by, there's all different brands, so I'm not going to tell you guys a brand, but they make photographers gloves. And on these gloves, you can take just your fingertips out so that you can work your dials. And I have a couple of different pairs of these. I love them for cold weather shoots. They look silly, but they absolutely work. So if you guys are looking for maybe Valentine's presents or something, have your significant other, or treat yourself to a pair of photographer's gloves that give you your fingers so you can turn the dials, but the rest of your hand stays warm. All right, guys, so those are my 5 tips to shooting in the snow, plus my 1 bonus tip. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like and the subscribe and the notification bell, and I will see you again soon. Bye.